Hello, podcast listeners. This is Poppy and Jeff Spencer, your relational experts. And we're here today to talk to you about, in our Shame and Guilt series, our April series, we're talking to you about parenting and divorce. And this segment is called Don't Forsake the Ex for the Sake of the Kids. And we're really excited because last week we had on Anita, who was phenomenal, talking about our Shame and Guilt series and how women especially process shame and keep it. And we gave you tips on how to eradicate it and get rid of that. And we talked about identifying it, but also what happens when we release that shame and guilt. We open up spaces for empathy and compassion and love to come in there. And this week, we are so excited.
We have Mike Murphy, semi-retired pastor who now lives in our fair city of Sarasota, Florida, with the aforementioned Anita. And Mike graduated from St. John's University in Minnesota and earned his master's from Loyola in Chicago. He's a trained spiritual director and has written 3 books. Mike, over the years, has helped hundreds of men and women recover from the hurts of divorce. Good for you. He is a sought-after speaker and workshop facilitator. Mike, thrilled to have you on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, Mike. Okay, lay it on us.
Glad to be here with you.
So lay it on us. What's the first thing you want to talk about? How do you like our title? First of all, Don't Forsake the Ex for the Sake of the Kids.
Oh, it's a great title. It's harder to do than say.
Oh, amen.
And I think that's the hardest thing for people, because a lot of times people they want to do something good for the kids, but they still bring in the relational turmoil they had with their ex. And as a result, that doesn't help the kids at all.
Exactly. We actually wrote an article about that a while back. And I can say for my 2 exes that we have incredible relationships with. And it was always I disciplined myself and made conscious intentions to always keep them in the forefront of my mind as the father of my children. So
it's very easy to throw an ex under the bus, but we've gone way out of our way to go anything and do anything but. In fact, Poppy and I are very proud of the fact that I actually consider both of her exes friends of mine now. We've had the opportunity to her first ex. We had him down here playing golf one time. He was visiting the daughter who lived nearby, and we played a round of golf, had dinner, had a great time. And, we all realized it was, again, things we can put way behind us, whatever hurts there were, whatever pains we've all realized if you can find new joy in your life, I think is a huge part of that, Mike. You can leave the pain behind. And even with Poppy's second ex, we were visiting recently in Atlanta, attending a football game, stayed at their home, and they couldn't have been more wonderful hosts to us, and we got a great visit.
Yeah, I guess I'm always the feeling that anybody that's good to my kids, you're in the sacred vault, So how do you help people who to get beyond that, to get past
what do you suggest?
The upset of a divorce, and so that they can role model these wonderful things for their children?
Well, I think it's a very complex issue. One is not everyone has the emotional intelligence of Poppy and Jeff. To be able to say.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Second.
Yeah, all right.
Come on,
yeah.
Come on, Mike.
Ask our children about that. They might give you a different answer. I don't know.
We did not prompt him to say that.
I've already talked to them there. And, no, I think that's a thing. You come in with great intentions and to do something right for the kids. But there's still a lot of old tapes that are going through people's heads. And if they haven't done the work of healing in their life, they end up pushing each other's buttons like crazy and then forgetting the fact that they want to do something good for the kids, but they're still fighting old battles. And I think a lot of it is because they've never gone through a healing process. I'm convinced that most of the people that I've worked with, their partners never went through some kind of healing process themselves.
Right.
Very, very rarely do I get 2 people in at one time to talk to me about how they can be whole and remain whole through this awful process of getting a divorce, because there is nothing fun about that, right?
No.
Right.
It's on nobody's bucket list, and people are going through denial, anger, resentment, all kinds of things, and if they haven't learned to deal with those things, it's just going to show up again in all kinds of ways, and it's going to spill out on the kids.
Is a part of this?
Part of what
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think part of what I recommend to people is to find a good recovery program that they can be part of. Find some relationship experts that they can go to. Find a counselor that really cares about helping them emerge whole and clear about the direction of their life, and then just the possibility that some good things can happen. But if only one person does that, it's a little bit harder to do that relationship dance.
Well, so what happens if, it's like dragging a horse to water? What happens if one partner is saying, yeah, I'm gonna go get some expertise and communication tips and how to deal with this, and the other partner is resistant? Are there any things that we can offer our listeners to do if you can't drag the person? But obviously you shouldn't not go yourself. You should obviously do that for the sake of the kids.
That's right. And I think one of the things that happens when you go through a good program is that person that is going to that program learns that they don't have to respond to the button pushing that the way they once responded to it.
Right.
And once you can stop that cycle in some ways, then maybe some sanity can exist. Now, two people go through a process and go through a common kind of process, then there's a lot better chance that they're going to speak the same language from the get-go. Doesn't mean that they're not going to have problems at times, because those old tapes show up. But chances are then at least they have a common language, and it's a common language they can give to their children also.
Right. We touched on this a little bit with Anita, your wonderful wife and partner and exceptional speaker and spiritual director in last week's podcast. And one of the things that struck us, that resonated when you just said something, was talking about, not being attached to the outcome, whether the other person comes along or not. And, as we deal with communication, we always break it down for our clients that are going through this divorce process. We break it down into saying, he or she yells at me on the phone. And so we sort of like remove that access of communication, and we say, okay, text and email only. Do you find that is helpful?
Yeah, don't you mentioned this? Don't let those buttons get pushed. Well, that's one of the ways you prevent the buttons to be pushed, is you can't communicate live if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think sometimes people have to acquire a whole different set of tools. One of those tools is not to do the things that cause problems,
right,
in the first place, right? And people oftentimes come into a marriage and they really have a history of relationship failure all their life. And I always ask people, do you think you might have a broken people picker?
I like that. People picker.
Broken people picker, right? That's hard to say 10 times really fast. There might be something in you that needs to get fixed.
Yes.
Because that's affecting all the relationships that you have. You figure out what that is, boy, you're going to be a lot better off going forward in any kind of relationship, to begin with. But I think you are exactly right. If phone calls get you into a mess of trouble, you don't really have to talk on the phone. There's all kinds of other ways that you can do it.
One of the other things that I was thinking about when you were talking earlier about, one of the people going and the other one not, so much of, I think you have to be able to be, and this is one of the things that Poppy and I talk about, your personal accountability. What did I contribute to it? People are so quick to be blaming in these scenarios, to say, well, that person, the other person in the relationship was all the reasons everything went wrong. This person did this, and that's what's especially poisonous to children who overhear these things as well. And so it's important to try to teach people that to be accountable to themselves. What did you contribute to it?
Boy, you're right on with that. I think one of the hardest questions that I pose to people is this. And usually when I see people, they're the aggrieved party.
Right.
Something major has happened. And, there's been an affair. Somebody's ran off with money. They're there for a good reason, and I applaud that. But one of the questions I do ask them, well, somebody ran off on an affair. If they did this, if they did that. And I say, this is going to be hard, and I'm not trying to heap burning coals on you. but can you come to grips with this question? Why do you think someone chose or is choosing not to spend the rest of their life with you?
I love that.
Tough question.
That's a great. Say that one more time for our listeners.
Why do you think someone is choosing not to spend the rest of their life with you?
And I'm sure you get a lot of discomfort from people.
Well, it's. I can guarantee you one thing: you have to be prepared for quiet.
I was going to say there'd be a long silence there. Yep.
Because that's the one question that people don't want to talk about. And at the workshops I do, the first night, and I was always doing it in a church setting, but the first night, I would say, okay, you may talk about your ex or your soon-to-be ex or the person you're having the relationship problems with tonight, but not for the rest of the seminar.
Because like
that person isn't here. That person isn't here. So from this point, from tomorrow forward, we're going to talk about you.
Perfect.
We're going to talk to you about getting your life back together, to write a new chapter, a new story.
Right. Well, that's what we do.
Life.
Right. We're new life story coaches.
New story. Yep.
Yeah. We do the same thing with our clients. Is we say let's create a new story. So you kind of frame it in a positive way, though. It sounds like, right? It's not like pointing a finger and judging this person, but you're saying, no, we're shifting, we're redirecting, and we're creating a new path for you, a new track, right?
Right. A new track to find out if there's anything in your life that you might have to take a look at.
Right.
Because sometimes people will say, and I think I'm a little bit angry. Well, when you explore a little bit, you begin to realize that they have a recurring pattern of expressing anger in destructive ways.
Right.
And then you ask the question, what if you quit writing that chapter? What if you found a new way to cope? What if you found a new way of expressing the negative stuff that's coming through you? What would change, not in just your relationship with that particular person, but I can guarantee you it's probably leaking out on your kids,
Yes.
your siblings, even your friends who have abandoned you because they can't deal with your anger anymore.
Right.
And so if they can come to start getting to grips with that and say, is there a way of doing that? And say, yes, there is. And let's start exploring that. Because what could happen if you could write a new chapter that says, I found a new way to express my anger.
Wonderful.
It would change your life. It would change your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're also faith-based in our personal lives, and the other thing that we also follow is law of attraction, and we've talked about that before. And we are big believers in that, and believe that what you evoke and what you give off, and what perception you give, you get back. So people that are angry will sort of organically and naturally attract other people who also feel angry and have contempt or resentment and guilt and shame in their lives.
And this goes back to your people picker concept here, Mike. This is this is what you attract.
We always say too, hurt people, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think angry people attract angry people. I mean, I was divorced, and Anita, my wife Anita was divorced, and we've come together to forge, we think, a pretty terrific marriage.
Yes, we can attest to that.
Yeah, but we both know that because we've worked with so many divorced people, that one of the problems is you get angry people who are getting divorced get together and they teach each other how to be angry in new ways, but still destructive ways, and it doesn't work.
Right.
And one of the things I say to people is, you might need a whole new group of friends.
Right.
If they're just making you angrier, if you're just sadder after you're done with them, why them?
Right.
Why couldn't you find other people that are going to out of that, you're going to meet other people that are going to be around people like you. And then who knows what God might do.
We like that idea of, turning the mirror the other way around and having them look there and say, what might you be doing to attract these angry folks into your life?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
And we've met Mike and Anita, and they are both as gentle as lambs. So I'm sure when you ask that, people feel very safe to explore that, even though it's a little uncomfortable.
Right. Well, I think both of us are able to say to people, this is how we contributed to the failure of our past marriage.
Right. Oh, I'm the first one to own that with my.
Mm-hmm.
I take 100% responsibility for. Say that we wrote about it in our book.
Mm-hmm.
We examined this for hundreds of hours, and really being introspective and looking at what exactly were the roles that I played in not being the best version of myself. And
yes.
And ultimately, I think that's why I am divorced, because I didn't like who I'd become.
Mm-hmm.
There was never blame on the ex, which is why we can forge a decent relationship and a very respectful one with the exes.
Yeah, I want to go back to something, Mike. This kind of goes back to last week, what we were discussing with Anita. Is the concept of the shame and guilt. And I know one of those things that can often, with heavy religious backgrounds that a lot of folks can have, many people of the Catholic faith, the idea of divorce is not even an accepted concept. And we've heard many people say, oh, you should always stay together for the sake of the kids. And I know this is something that Poppy and I often take exception to, and we often will say we get...
It's a case by case.
Yeah, case by case, but, often it's getting divorced for the sake of the kids and not subjected to us. But share with us your thoughts on divorce or not, for the sake of the kids.
Is it a black and white thing, like always stay together for the sake of the kids? Right.
No, it is not. It is not, and I'm appalled sometimes when people make it black and white. I always ask people this question. I say, is there any chance that the two of you, with help, could reconcile, could get together in a way that's really going to be healthy and productive and honoring to God and honoring to your whole family? If there's any chance at all, and if you both agree on that, let's start a process to see how long, where that takes us.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right? Because that's an important thing, and I'm a big, I've sent people all over the place. I've sent people to the Gottman Institute for intensives.
Right.
All kinds of interesting places, and I've seen marriages that were on the brink of divorce come back together in a good and wonderful and noble and true way. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I can't do that for people. Neither can you in your role,
right?
In your seminars and your work with people. So I've seen more and more people staying together because of the economic situation since 2008. Living in the same house in different rooms. And they're saying, we're doing it because of economics and also for the sake of the kids, but they hate each other.
Right.
Yeah.
They hate each other. And I'm going, I asked them the question, now tell me again how this is good for the kids.
Right.
What's it doing to them? What's it teaching them if you two aren't even talking about one another?
It teaches them that's what a marriage is.
And it teaches them as they grow up and select partners and life partners that they should pick people that are detached, that have contempt for one another, that have no respect for one another. And it's like, as a parent, I certainly don't want to be teaching that to my children, And
absolutely.
You also touch on the economic things, staying together economically. And sometimes people will be in a marriage that is not fulfilling, that is not really thriving. And but they stay together because of socioeconomic conditions. And perhaps there's a there's a status reason that they want to stay in the marriage, but that the two partners are basically strangers to one another. We like to call it, sometimes we call it a living comfortably numb. And I think that's a devastating message to role model to your family, your kids, you know?
Oh, I think so. I think you're right. It just says all kinds of awful things. And sometimes I think what happens, one of the causes, I think, of divorce are kids.
Yeah.
And let me explain that.
Please, yeah.
Because people are saying, what do you mean by that? I'm saying that a couple begins to love their kids and forgets about their marriage.
Right. Yep.
And they forget that they committed, before an altar, in my case at the church or before a judge or whatnot, to love and cherish one another. And they forget how to do that, but they're lavishing all this attention on their children. But the problem is, once those children leave, they wake up one day and they look across a dinner table and they realize they don't know this person that they're married to.
Right.
And their excessive love of their kids,
right,
at the expense of their marriage, really is causing them a lot of problems, and probably has caused them a lot of problems.
Well, like you, Mike, I've been a parenting expert for a number of years, and I think that is a really shameful, to use our word from the month, message to send to our kids, to lavish all this on the kids, because it sets them up in the future for unprepared coping skills, entitlement, the list goes on and on.
This is a topic Poppy and I have talked about a lot. The millennial generation here, we've, our generation and younger, but our generation has been the one that's been lavishing all this stuff on them and giving them all the trophies all the time, where they don't, they forget too much of that. And so, we agree that we often lose track of marriages. That's an easy thing to do.
And so they grew up in a house where they didn't see mutual love and respect from the parents and mutual attention for one another. And now we see a generation that's emerging with Tinder and Bumble and online dating and everything, from the Gen Zs to the Gen Xers, who are don't know what a committed relationship looks like. They don't want that. Maybe they grew up in one of these comfortably numb households. Right.
Yes, I think you're exactly right there. And so they're staying away from anything that just smacks of commitment. So even when it might be right for them to get married or meet somebody that they really love and care about, we're seeing engagements that seem to last forever sometimes.
Yeah, we've seen people. Yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't make any sense at all. In my faith world, I'm a minister at a Christian church, and I know you have a bigger listenership than that. But we talk in our scriptures about not having any false idols before us.
Right.
And what happens oftentimes is our kids become a false idol.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then we worship that. But I think what we're really called to do is just to keep falling in love with each other. And Anita and I have a little phrase that the job of husband and wife is from the morning they wake up, from the moment they wake up to the minute they go to bed, is to make love with each other all day long.
Oh,
God,
that's beautiful.
You stallion you all day long.
No, he's not talking about sexually, honey.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. It's that we make love with one another when we listen attentively to one another.
Right.
When we say please, when we say thank you, when we say, can I pick that up for you because I'm going out for an errand? Is there anything I can do for you?
You're absolutely right.
Wonderful observations. Yeah. I wanted to ask another question to you, because I think we all kind of sat back on our heels when you said, the kids are the cause of the divorce. And I mean, obviously the kids themselves aren't the reason. It's just that interruption. But what do you think is the most common primary cause for divorce in our worlds?
Well, I think two people come into a relationship that needs to be into what's supposed to be a committed, mature relationship, but they come in with undeveloped skills and perceptions about what maturity means. So they start off from at the wrong place. But I also think there's some things that we know does cause a divorce. If you are in an immature relationship, you're going to get derailed by these things. I think sex,
right,
is one of them. Styles of communication, finances. I see, especially in younger generations, that they're not able to leave their family of origin,
right,
at all, and so there's never that leave and cleave kind of thing where you say, no, I don't have to live 3 doors down from my mom and dad because I married this new person, and we want to be in contact with our families as much as we can, but we need a life together,
right?
And I don't think, and I think that causes more problems than we even realize. Because a lot of guys have said to me, and when they come to me, says, my wife has never left her mother.
Right.
He says, I'm dealing, and I don't even know who I'm dealing with half the time. And that's a hard place to be in.
You're right. Whose voice are you hearing? Is that mom's voice or your wife's voice?
Right. So I think that what needs to be done, I always advise couples, make sure you go someplace that will do a good premarital inventory with you, that will spend time with you, send you to a premarital class that has some oomph to it, put on by real couples that will talk about their strengths and their weaknesses and in their own marriage. And then I always urge people to go to a marital seminar once a year and to go to a good one. And a good one is always one that forces you to turn your chair towards your spouse, not talk around the round table to other couples, but to talk to each other about what you love and what you're struggling with, and who you are at this particular point in time, and get to know each other again over an extended period of time, usually a weekend.
That's beautiful.
Maybe if they had something like the relationship restaurant and the marriage menu that they could use on one of these. Well, that's what we have. Isn't that incredible, Mike?
So,
well, it is. To go to people that know what they're doing, that can offer you opportunities. I actually think every church, synagogue, mosque, you name it, should be offering programs every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
we agree. It's one of those things to keep. It's almost like some folks will do this, the recommitment of their vows. It's just it's a great way just to say, hey, I'm all in, and that's I know one of the things that absolutely when I rediscovered Poppy after being apart from this beautiful creature for 32 years, I was so all in, realizing what I'd missed, what I'd overlooked, what I had bypassed, and my immature, youth, that I didn't know how to grasp that. But we try really, really hard to do all those kind things you talked about earlier, Mike. We always try to be, making love all day long with the gestures and the things you say and things you do. We try to really focus on that. And
I'm going to take exception to what he just said, because I personally have removed the word try from our vocabulary. It just happens. I mean, yes, it's intentional and it's conscious, but it doesn't take effort. And I think so many people get sidetracked by that, because marriage is really hard work. And I don't
Not if you're committed, not if you're adoring the person, it's not work.
I don't think it's hard work. I think it takes intention and conscious love to make a relationship really flourish.
Yes. I urge people not to let things linger.
Yes.
Which was a problem for me in my first marriage.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, to keep short accounts of any wrongs, to keep short accounts of it, and to learn how to apologize. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have just been in a rush to do something, as we all are prone to do at times. And I just, I've learned to come back to Anita as soon as I realized that I was inattentive and say, "Oh, Anita, I'm so sorry. I was just rushing to do this, and I know you wanted to talk, and I wasn't paying attention.
Wonderful.
Please forgive me.
Ah.
And you do that, it's easy. And there's no argument that takes place because she knows I'm sincere about it.
Right.
Do you know all the women that are listening to this now? They're going like, oh, why can't I find someone like Mike? He sounds so wonderful.
well, Anita probably has other stories too. So it's, none of us are perfect, right?
No, we're not.
But it's an intentionality of what we do.
Right.
Anita knows my intentions are good.
Right.
Just like Jeff, you know that Poppy's intentions are good, and vice versa, right?
Sure.
Right. Absolutely.
And when you know somebody's intentions are good, you can forgive things pretty easily because you know, wow, this just looks like my spouse here just has had a hard day, and they're a little bit more short-tempered than they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not doing it to be hurtful. They're just at the edge of their rope.
They're just tired.
Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. Sometimes if one of us is overly fatigued or just has too much occupying our thoughts and our days, sometimes we'll just look at the other person, kind of lift our eyebrows a little bit, and that's just a little signal like, whoa, come back to the present, what's going on, and a soft smile, and just say, oh, okay, we're here, we're ready. Listen, Mike, you have been awesome here.
What a wonderful guest. It's been a blast having you on here.
Well, it's a blast being with you, and it's been fun getting to know you. I mean, we met just a couple of weekends ago, so this is great.
Well, if someone wanted to reach out and find anything more about you and your books that you've written, where do they find you, Mike?
The best thing that they could do is just shoot me an email, and it's all lowercase, mike.anita.murphy@gmail.com.
Okay, mike.anita.murphy@gmail.com. Okay.
Right. And then they can just inquire, and we're going from there. Anita and I are working on some things with the website and doing some other things too, but we're not quite there yet. But we love, just like you, we love helping couples just get better at doing the couple thing. And we want them to be great parents, and we believe there's great joy in the journey of doing that. So,
amen.
Amen, Mike. Thank you so much for being our guest, and we look forward to future times. We'll have you back on again. We could have talked to you for hours. You can find Mike at mike.anita.murphy at gmail.com. And
that's my email.
You can find us at relationalexperts.com. And you also can find us on Facebook. We're Relational Experts there. And we are the Relational 8 Team.
On Twitter. So please feel free to write us. You can get a free consult on our website. 30
and our
minutes.
email is kind of like Mike's. It's Poppy and Jeff at relationalexperts.com. We have the same kind of thing. We're one voice.
Yes, we're one voice. So you could reach out, and if you have any inquiries, questions, comments from today's podcast, don't forsake the X for the sake of the kids. Please reach out to us, and we will look forward to seeing you next week in our Shame and Guilt series. And have a great week.
Mike, thanks for being our guest.
Live with intention.
You're welcome.
See ya.
Bye.